Quick! List 5 things people say all the time while watching horror movies. TikTok, time is of the essence. Alright, you ready? I came up with a few. We got no. We got ah. We got don't do that. We got holy crap. And of course, the ever-present classic, what? It's no surprise that horror movies can catch audiences off guard. It's in the genre's DNA. Often the scenarios presented will be quite confusing due to missing information, sneaky villains, or confusing monsters. And we're gonna take a look at some of the last category today. Sometimes their origin is questionable, other times their motivation. Even how they survive could be called into question. That doesn't make them any less interesting or compelling though, and it's fuel for conversation later on. Who wants to talk about how every part of a monster's existence was totally straightforward and understandable? No one! So let's get down to business. Hello horror heads and welcome back to the scariest channel on YouTube, Top 5 Scary Videos. I'm your horror host Keegan Hughes and today we're going to be counting down the top 5 horror movie monsters we still don't understand. If movie monsters make you move, make sure to check out our top 5 scary creatures playlist. It's popping up right over here. Alright, let's talk about monsters. Coming in at number 5, we've got The Stuff. First of all, yes, the stuff is a monster. It moves around on its own, finds victims to overtake, consumes like nobody's business, and looks like a cross between marshmallow fluff and frozen yogurt. If you don't think that constitutes a monster, I don't know what to tell you. However, the way the stuff operates, what it wants to do, and why it's so addictive is a whole other issue. The history of the stuff in the movie's universe is pretty sketchy to begin with. It's discovered by a man who thinks it's a good idea to eat bubbling white stuff from the ground because it's smooth and smells okay. Soon enough, the stuff is being sold in every grocery store in America. Some big corporate dudes decided it was worth it. Turns out the stuff is addictive. Although it's pretty clear that the folks up top knew that all along. So the stuff is being pumped out of the ground in incredible volumes, sold at rates previously unknown, and now everybody in America is in danger. Why danger? Well, in addition to being naturally occurring, easy to produce, delicious, addictive, and semi-autonomous, it also takes over people's brains. Thankfully, it only kills or melts some people. Sometimes it's people that threaten it, other times sort of random. I don't quite get how it kills people, but it looks pretty cool, so I'll give it a pass. Also, stopping the stuff is way easier than one would think too. A simple radio broadcast by a paranoid, militaristic lunatic convinces the world to give up their beloved product. If only that really worked, then Alex Jones could save us from all the chaos and curious frogs. By the way, that last line was a joke. Here's the thing though, the stuff doesn't need to be understood, it just needs to be experienced, and that's all I'll say on the matter for today. Coming in at number 4, we've got Lamberto Bava's Demons. Hear me out. Demons should be pretty straightforward, right? A woman cuts herself on a cursed mask and she becomes a demon. Then she spreads the demon infection to all sorts of other theater goers. Then the demons make it out of the theater and take over the world. Like, I get that. But how do they come back in Demons 2? It's like a similar story of demonic chaos and spreading madness, but there's no mask to kick it off. Also, it seems like the demons from the first movie actually did take over the world, but then it was somehow rolled back or remedied. Like after the glowing-eyed creatures caused an apocalypse and chased a gun-toting, jeep-driving family into the countryside, everything just became normal again. And then the demons became part of the world's pop culture and myth-making. At the beginning of Demons 2, we've got some folks watching a movie that seems to take place in the same universe as demons, but like 100 years later when people are rediscovering the bodies of the demons. And then everyone in the apartment complex who watches this demonic TV movie is actually attacked by a demon who crawls out of the television. So did the events of the first movie actually happen? Or is this a situation where the events of the first movie are like a movie within a movie for the characters in the second movie? When did demons get the ability to cross into people's homes via TV screen? And why didn't a cursed mask need to be used this time? Were demonic babies always an option? I get that they wanted to make the most interesting and exciting movie possible, but there are just so many questions that come up with a watch of Demons and Demons 2. Double featuring them is definitely a good call, but don't think too hard about it. Coming in at number 3, we've got Gremlins. Anytime you make hard and fast rules for horror movie monsters, there are going to be some issues that arise. And in the Gremlins universe, there are a few of these. Don't expose the Mogwai to light because that'll kill them. Don't let them come in contact with water because that will spawn new ones. And of course, don't feed them after midnight because it'll make them evil. But how strict are these rules actually, and how loosely can they be interpreted? Because not letting them come into contact with light is a little nuts, considering how many light sources the Gremlins come in contact with. Sure, sunlight is like the big bad that will kill them, but Mr. Wing's grandson said any light could be bad. And then there's Gremlins 2 where they're immune to light, but that's thanks to science. So let's move on. Now let's discuss water. If a Mogwai / Gremlin touches touches water, more spawn from them, right? But is there a limit to how many can spawn? Like in Gremlins, Pete spills water on Gizmo, spawning 5 new guys. Is the amount of Gremlins spawned proportional to the amount of water? Because when Stripe hops in the pool later and spawns a new army, is there any point that the Gremlins would stop spawning? I can only assume that each spawned Gremlin would in turn spawn more Gremlins as long as they were in the water, right? So couldn't they just hypothetically continue popping out Gremlins forever? Another thing about the water. The Gremlins get drunk later, and alcohol is largely water anyways. Would that not cause some sort of reaction? I'm probably just looking too far into that one. So lastly, we've got the no food after midnight rule. People have been questioning this since Gremlins hit theaters back in 1984. When does after midnight end? At 3 a.m. when the sun rises? What midnight are we observing? There are different time zones all over the world, and we know that the Gremlins didn't originate in America. You know what? Gremlins is just good old-fashioned fun. I feel like there doesn't need to be this much thought put into it. Although I do have one final question for you though, courtesy of Nick Let's Go. Where did the Gremlins go? Coming at number 2, we've got Dr. Pretorius. The human mind will never be able to fully comprehend eldritch horrors. That is one part of what makes cosmic horror so effective. So of course, one of the most iconic monsters from one of the most iconic Lovecraft adaptations would be hard to understand. In From Beyond, Dr. Pretorius and his assistant Dr. Tillinghast activate a machine that allows folks to see beyond their normal reality. Pretorius, a notorious addict and sadist, loves the power the machine offers him and gives himself to it. He transcends reality and becomes one with the creatures and energies beyond. But he's not satisfied with being out there. No, he keeps coming back, more deformed and terrifying each time. So what has happened to him? And why does he act this way? Will the world ever be the same? Well, these are all good questions, but they're not often answered in Lovecraftian tales. Even so, that doesn't detract from the story. If anything, the uncertainty of From Beyond adds to its appeal. Feeling small in the face of the unknown. That's what cosmic horror is all about. And even though the good doctor may disappear when the resonator explodes, we can't know if he's really gone for good. And finally, at number 1, we've got the Greasy Strangler. I made the wonderful mistake of taking my roommates to see this movie at an indie cinema back in university. I knew it was gonna be weird and I told them as much, but I don't think anyone expected the balls to the wall insanity that is the Greasy Strangler. A father-son duo consisting of a man named Big Ronnie and another man named Big Braden. They run disco tours in a tiny town, all while eating insanely greasy food for every meal. Every night, Big Ronnie enters a trance-like state where he covers himself in grease and runs around killing people, thus the Greasy Strangler. I just like saying it. The kills are just as gruesome and outlandish as one would expect, but why? Why grease? Why serial murder in a small town? How does coating oneself in leftover cooking supplies grant superhuman strength? And where does all this grease really come from? He's got like vats of it in his home. And the end of the movie? Ridiculous to say the least. If you haven't seen it, I'd recommend giving it a go. And let me know what you think of the ending down in the comments. The mind reels, doesn't it? Horror monsters are often impossible to fully understand, but hopefully I presented you with a list of extra special oddities. So what'd you think of the list? How many of these monsters do you recognize? Have you figured any of them out? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more mysterious ones from the top 5 scary horror movie imposters. Shane Quiring says, The Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the remake and the original. Why are they not on the list? I'm gonna be honest with you, Shane. My body was snatched and I've been replaced with an alien. So from now on, anytime I get something wrong or if you disagree with my list, you can just chalk it up to that. Crow with the SOL says, the most terrifying imposter. The one you think is a fart, but it's not. Ooh, the old switcheroo. Rough. Always keep a pair of pants on standby. Dabby, thy name is Tuya says, never, never trust anyone who says trust me. It never ends well. Sounds like somebody hit the ground during the trust fall at church camp, eh? Elaha Rose says, I wish you had listed the names of the movies too. Oh, they're all in the sources. Description is your friend. And Edmund Williams says, Keegan has a brain? Incorrect. I don't know who told you that, but you might want to vet your sources a little better. And that's all the time we have for today. Before I take a shot for every first comment in one of our videos, make sure to give this list a big thumbs up and subscribe for more ludicrous lists. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. What it wants to do and why it's so addictive, way easier than one would think too. A simple water on Gizmo spawning 5 new guys. And Pretorius, a notorious, oh, I didn't even realize I wrote like that. Although I do have one final question for you though, courtesy of Nick Let's Go. Where did the Gremlins go? Hopefully somebody gets that. I don't know if anybody will. I don't understand any of these monsters, but I've seen all the movies and I get to talk about why I don't understand them. So.
It's even worse when you see it and you still don't understand it though.
That's the best. It's when you walk away, like, what the? did I just watch?